Hello. Today we discussing Parsha Vayishlach. Well, it's a very interesting and dramatic Parsha. Jacob returns to the Holy Land, and after 20 years stay in Haran, he sends angels, emissaries, to his brother Esau, in hope of angels finding that there will be peace and reconciliation between the two of them. However, the messengers come back that his brother is on the way. He definitely is not peaceful because he has got 400 fully armed men, basically, and he is moving forward towards Jacob, and obviously 400 terrorists moving towards you, that's not a peaceful arrangement. So Jacob prepares for war. How does he prepare? First of all, he sends Esau a large gift of cattle, jewelry, and all sorts of precious stones, etc. And organizes this precisely such a way that Esau should be very, very pleased. So he's basically trying to appease Esau. The second thing is he prays to Hashem. And the third thing, he divides his whole camp. One camp he divides into two. And he separates his family, his 4 wives and respective children, 11 sons and 1 daughter. He puts them in one camp, and then there is all the other servants and everything is in the other camp. And the night Jacob ferries his family and possessions across the Jabbok River, he decides to return back because he left some items on the other side of the river, and this is where he encounters the angel, the spirit of Esau, and with whom he wrestles until the morning. And as a result of this wrestling match, Jacob suffers a dislocated hip, basically sciatic nerve, and however, he doesn't let this creature, this angel, to go to the dawn service, which all angels must return back to pray to Hashem, unless this creature, this angel, blesses him, and the angel basically tells him that he will be bestowed the name of Israel by Hashem, which means he who prevailed over the divine. Eventually, Jacob and Esau meet and embrace in a kiss and cry on each other's shoulders, but then they part ways, and Jacob purchases a plot of land near Shechem, and in Shechem, the crown prince, also called Shechem, abducts and rapes Jacob's daughter Dinah. Dinah's brothers Shimon and Levi avenge the deed by killing all male inhabitants of the city. And basically they told, I will tell you briefly the story later on, because we will touch on this a little bit deeper. And so just two Shimon and Levi killed basically 24,000 men. Then Jacob is not happy with that, very upset about all of this, and he basically tells off Shimon and Levi. So then Jacob journeys, and Rachel, his beloved wife, dies while giving birth to her second son Benjamin, which is the 12th son of Jacob, and she is buried on the roadside in a grave near Bethlehem. Reuben, his oldest son, which is from Leah, interferes with his father's marital life. The story is basically he moved his father's bed from Bilhah's tent, which was the maidservant of Rachel, to his mother's tent, which was Leah's tent. But that was enough for Jacob to get very upset about it and to tell off Reuben. And many times actually later on he reminds Reuben of this sin where he interfered with marital wife of his father. Jacob finally arrives to Hebron, to his father Isaac, who later dies at the age of 180. Rivka has passed away before Jacob's arrival, Yaakov's arrival. And then the Parsha concludes with detailed account of Esau's wives, children and grandchildren, and the whole family histories of the people of Seir, and among whom Esau settled, and a list of 8 kings who ruled Edom, the land of Esau and Seir descendants. That's how the Parsha finishes. What I want to discuss today basically are 2 issues. Issue 1. On the way, when Jacob was on the way to Haran, and in his prophetic dream, Hashem has promised him that he will look after him all the way, have no fear. Hashem told him that. So why? The question is why? What? Yaakov doubts Hashem's words and is in serious doubts that Hashem will look after him when he gets totally petrified by the fact that he has got a very bad message from the angels that Esau is coming with 400 armed terrorists. And it becomes, it's very strange. How comes? Then the other issue here, why all these strategies where he, on one hand, he divides the camp physically, right? On the other hand, he sends all those presents to Esau to appease him, to make peaceful overtures to him, to use diplomacy. And the last but not least, he prays to Hashem. Still prays to Hashem some more. That needs explanation. It's very hard to understand this. Why he does all of this. And this is what our sages, and I found this in a number of Chabad articles as well as audio lessons, audio shiurim. This is what they're saying. Yaakov acts here not because he lost his faith in Hashem and he is in doubt that Hashem will look after him and will protect him and his family. No. He is very humble man. And because he kept all 613 mitzvot during those 20 years while he was with Laban in Haran, and all of this basically depths of physicality, physical world, constantly challenged by his wonderful father-in-law, what he was in doubts, and in the end he became extremely wealthy, so what he was in doubts about is maybe his bank account up there has been depleted because Hashem has been looking after him very nicely. He came up absolutely totally naked and without money. We remember the story, right? And now he is an extremely wealthy man with a family of 11 sons and 1 daughter and all of this, so he is doing very well. So he was in doubts that maybe he doesn't have enough, what's the word? I forgot the word suddenly. Schus. He doesn't have enough spiritual excuses with Hashem so that the Hashem will fully protect him. And this is why he was still praying. More than that, he fully understood and he knew, and this is the lesson which he teaches us in all of those his actions, that we cannot say, okay, Hashem will do everything for me and I will be fine. You know, no problem, there is no need for me to worry about money, I don't need a job, Hashem will provide, and that's it. It doesn't work that way. And obviously, Yaakov knew that very well. So what he does his physical part of the arrangement with Hashem. He prepares for war. He splits the camp in such a way that one way or the other his family will survive. Right? I will not go into the military details of the operation here, but that was his idea of how he can save his family using physical means of fighting and protecting his family physically. On top of that, Torah tells us that we always must, before we go for war, we always must look for peaceful solutions to the problems. Because there is, to jump the gun and start shooting from the hip, it's an easy thing to do. The consequences, however, horrible. We all know that. War is not a picnic. So this is why he sends all of those lavish presents to Esau in order to appease him. And when he finally meets him, he basically prostrates himself 8 times in front of him and calls him his master 8 times in there. That was a little bit over the top. Prostrating himself, sending presents, that was fine. But Hashem obviously was not happy with Yaakov prostrating himself in front of Esau. Why I'm saying that with confidence? Because the sages are saying, this is why in the end the Torah describes the whole list of 8 kings who ruled Edom. And do you realize that 8 times Yaakov prostrated himself in front of Esau? That's why there were 8 kings ruling over Jews, ruling over Judea before the first Jewish king came up. King Saul. He was the first king. Prior to him, there were no Jewish kings. There were 8 non-Jewish kings. And this was Hashem's basically punishment for this mistake Yaakov has made. The other aspect of all of this is what's happened to Dinah. Why all of this rape taken place and Shechem and the following massacre? The truth of the matter is that Dinah was a prophetess as well. She was daughter of Leah and Yaakov, nonetheless. And Dinah's abilities were basically the ability to pull up, to elevate the physicality up to the spiritual world. That was her God-given capability. And this is why Dinah was trying to go into the Shechem to get acquainted with the ladies in there, with the girls, because she felt this need, whether she consciously recognized it or not, I don't know. But what Torah is, what sages are saying, basically, she wanted to encounter the girls and elevate them. Now, the reason Shechem was basically absolutely besotted by her and had an incredible desire for her, where he was even prepared to circumcise himself and all men within the city, and his father, obviously, they all got circumcised in order for Shechem to marry Dinah. Now, why is that? What the sages are saying, that when Adam has sinned, the kli, the cup, which accepts the light of God, the light of Hashem, has shattered. That's a Kabbalistic explanation. What I'm trying to do is to tell you a little bit of Kabbalistic explanation related to all of this. Now, when it has shattered, the splinters of that kli, of that cup, went all over the world. And Shechem had some splinters of that cup in his soul. And that's why he had an incredible desire for Dinah, because he knew that Dinah can elevate, capable to elevate him. Whether he recognized that, he was thinking maybe physical attributes, but the reality, from Kabbalistic point of view, this is what was happening to him. Now, the thing is that Dinah, it's a very deep story here, because what Yaakov did, actually, before he met Esau, he hidden Dinah in a box, in a big chest, and locked her up there, so that Esau will not see Dinah, because he was afraid that Esau would decide to marry Dinah, would want to marry Dinah, and he didn't want to give Dinah to him, which was a mistake. Again, Hashem basically was thinking that Dinah is the one who is capable to elevate Esau and to pull him out from his evil forces, from the clutches of evil forces, and elevate his soul so that he will become righteous rather than a sinner. But Yaakov interfered by locking up Dinah, and this is why all this story of a rape has taken place as a consequence of this. Miget Kaneget Miget. He hidden Dinah from Esau, and then Shechem, which wasn't related at all, and he wasn't Jewish at all, where Esau at least was, Yaakov's brother. He was a Jew, right? So this is why it was a kind of a punishment as well. Now, what has happened after this, when Shimon and Levi went and massacred on the third day after the circumcision, massacred 24,000 men. We cannot imagine that two 14, 15 years old boys were capable to massacre 24,000 men without divine interference. So it means that they were helped by Hashem. One of my friends in the shul, in my synagogue, yesterday on Saturday, explained this incredibly well, and I was so taken by his explanation that I decided to share it with you too. What he said is 24,000 men were massacred, but they were already circumcised, so they were Jewish. So their souls had to be elevated. We're jumping 500 or whatever number of years later, and you know the famous story later when Pinchas kills Zimri and the princess, when the Edomite women went to seduce Jewish men later on when they were in the desert with Moshe. Now, and after that, the Levites are told by Moshe to judge all of those men from tribe of Shimon, and 24,000 men were killed. These 24,000 men were reincarnation of those first 24,000 men killed by Shimon and Levi, because they had to elevate those souls. And then what we're finding out, another few hundred years later, a few thousand years later, Rebbe Akiva, when 24,000 students of his yeshiva passed away because of a plague. Again, the same number. In Torah, when the same number is used, it means some connection. And the explanations which we find, which my friend from the shul has found, and it's brilliant, is the fact that those souls were completing their cycle, and those students of Rebbe Akiva were very young, but they passed away. Why? They passed away because they completed their task as their soul elevation. Because in the end of the day, every one of us comes to this world, dies, reincarnates, and goes through the cycle, trying to elevate himself, to learn his soul, because we need to complete, every one of us needs to complete 613 mitzvot. And only when we complete those 613, except the ones for Kahanim, there is a little bit less for all of us except the Kahanim, right? Then we stop reincarnating. And this is what's happened to those 24,000 men. So on the surface, it looks like it was a terrible deed which Shimon and Levi did. On the other hand, they were tools in the hands of Hashem. I want to finish this with basically the words, let's remember that we cannot go away in the Himalayan mountains and say, what the heck, the world can survive by its own. You know, we must constantly, we learn Torah, we elevate our souls, but we constantly live in this physical world in order to elevate the physical world as well. We interact with it, we work with it, but we don't forget who we are, what we are in our connection to Hashem. Thank you very much. I will see you in the next Parsha. Goodbye.